Hello everyone, welcome back to Foot Forecast, and today's video I'm going to be going through every Premier League club's best player this season. I'm going to start off with Arsenal and I'm going to go with Declan Rice. Rice has been exceptional for Arsenal so far this season and he deserves to be the best player at Arsenal so far. In terms of other players I did consider Gabriel, but I still think Rice is the better player than Gabriel. It's hard to compare these two positions because they are different. And I would actually say Rice and Gabriel are the best in their positions in the world. So it's hard to compare them, but I've decided to select Rice. I think Gabriel's also been better than his centre-half partner this season in Saliba, and the other player that you would have considered another season would have been Bukayo Saka, but he's been out of form, so he's definitely not in this conversation. So then we're on to the next club, which is Aston Villa, and for Villa I've decided to select Morgan Rogers. He had a bit of a slow start this season, but I do think he is Aston Villa's best player. He's absolutely outstanding, his ability to carry the ball, his work rate, and what he provides to that side. And when Rogers is at his best, Villa are at their best. In terms of other players I considered, Matty Cash. I think Matty Cash at right back's been really underrated as well this season, and I think he's been very good. And Boubacar Kamara. Kamara is out for this season, but he's so important to that Villa side, and he is a very good player. So then we're on to the next club, which is Bournemouth. I struggled with Bournemouth because I actually think Bournemouth's best player is either Antoine Semenyo, who obviously left the club, so I'm not including him, and Ryan, who's their new player they brought in. I think he's going to be a top player. There were some bigger clubs looking at Ryan, but he ended up at Bournemouth because other sides opted for different players. I think in a year's time we'll be talking about Ryan, but right now I can't put him in because I haven't watched him enough. The player I've decided to select, Truffert, came in from France at the start of the season for a very reasonable fee, and I think he's replaced Kirkes so well, and he's been great for them this season. In terms of other players I considered Marcos Senesi, but I decided to go with Truffert instead. Senesi's been really good for Bournemouth, filling in for Zabaini and Hoyson. Adams and Scott I also considered. I think those two in the double pivot in the midfield have been very good for Bournemouth this season. And I also think Krupi's been really good, but I don't think he's played enough minutes in terms of starting. I recently saw he's averaged to over 2.5 goals per 90, so he's a top player, Krupi, but he just hasn't started, I think, enough games to really properly consider him, and he's only come into the starting lineup recently. So then we're on to the next club, which is Brentford. And for Brentford, I've of course decided to select Igor Thiago. You can't really argue with it. He's the second highest top goal scorer with 17 goals in the Premier League this season, and he's replaced Wissa and Mbeumo really well. In terms of other players I also considered Jordan Henderson and Yarmouk. Yarmouk had a great start to the season, but he hasn't been as good recently, I would say. Kevin Schade has also been really good for Brentford, but I think it's clear the selection should be Igor Thiago. Another player I'd like to mention is Coyote. I think he's been really good for Brentford this season, and his ability with the long throw has been so useful for that side, and he's been a crucial reason why they're doing so well this season. So then we're on to the next club, which is Brighton. I could only really find one standout player for Brighton, and that was Van Hecke. I think Brighton have lots of solid or decent players in their side, but I think Van Hecke is clear in terms of their best player. If we did this at the start of the season, I would have considered Carlos Believer, but he hasn't been good enough this season. So then we're on to the next club, which is Burnley. I really struggled with Burnley because I think their whole squad is crap. And honestly, I don't watch Burnley a lot. They're one of the worst sides to watch in the league. I've decided to go with the keeper, Dubravka. I think he's kept Burnley in a lot of games this season. I used to rate Florentino Luis highly, but he hasn't been great since coming in from Benfica. Walker is past it, and Esteve I don't think has been great making that step up from the Championship. He was absolutely quality last year though. So then we're on to Chelsea, and it's clear it's got to be Reece James. He's top quality, one of the best players in the league, can fill in midfield and still be one of the best players as well as doing such a good job at right back. And the key reason why I can select James is that he's played this season. He's so often, I think, the best player on the pitch. In terms of other players I considered, Enzo Fernandez and Caicedo, I think they've been good in midfield. I think João Pedro's been good recently up front, but I don't think he's been great for the whole season. Esteval's been good for Chelsea, but he hasn't played enough minutes. And the Cole Palmer has just been injured the whole season pretty much, so I couldn't select him, and he hasn't been at his best. So then we're on to the next club, which is Crystal Palace, and I've decided to select Daniel Munoz at right wing back. He was out for a couple of months, and I think they really missed him, and it showed how good of a player Munoz really is. He's so important to that Palace side in terms of going forward. I would have selected Mark Gahey, but he's gone to Manchester City. And I don't think Wharton's actually been that good this season. He's definitely still a top player, and I don't doubt the ability of the player, but I think he could have been better this season. And that also applies to Mateta, who's really struggled in the last couple of months, clearly had an injury, and he's also fallen out of favour with the Palace fans, and rightfully so. I can understand why the Palace fans are frustrated at him. So then we're on to the next club, and I've decided to select James Garner. Just been such a consistent midfielder so far this season. I think he's gone under the radar, and I think he's been Everton's best player. In terms of other players I looked at Iliman Njai. I really rate Njai highly, but I don't think he's been as good as Garner. Jordan Pickford, I was very close to selecting Pickford. There's definitely an argument he is Everton's best player this season. He's made some crucial saves for them. The other player was Dewsbury Hall. I think Dewsbury Hall has been very good for Everton in that midfield this season. So then we're on to Fulham, and I've decided to select Harry Wilson. Wilson's been great for Fulham so far this season, scoring some crucial goals for them and scoring quite a few goals. And he could be a player that could end up at another club next season and take that step up. In terms of other players I looked at for Fulham, I also considered Raul Jimenez. I think he's been good up front for this season, but I think Wilson's been better. And I really like the centre-half partnership of Anderson and Bassey. I think they complement each other really well. So then we're on to the next club, which is Leeds, and I've decided to select Anton Stack. I think he's been Leeds' best player this season, scored some crucial free kicks, including one last weekend, and he's added that sort of physicality that was needed in that Leeds midfield. I was close to selecting DCL. DCL's been crucial, scoring the goals for Leeds, and he was a huge reason why Leeds started to improve and started to move up the table. Without DCL, I think Leeds would be a lot closer to the relegation zone. Let me know your thoughts on that one. Who have you selected, as well as all of these? Another player I'd also like to give credit to is Jayden Bogle. I think Bogle's been really good at wing-back for Leeds. Once again, crucial in how Leeds have changed since changing to the 5 at the back under Daniel Farke. So then we're on to the next club, and it is Liverpool. And this is pretty obvious for me. It's got to be Dominic Szoboszlai, being Liverpool's best player by quite a distance this season. And he's been crucial, and he's filled in at right back, midfield, wing at points. He just does everything for this side, and without him Liverpool would be having a way worse season and probably in the bottom half. In terms of another player that was somewhat close to Szoboszlai was Hugo Ekitike. Ekitike has been a really good new signing for Liverpool. He had a bit of a patch in the middle of the season where he was struggling, but that was when Liverpool was struggling their most, so it does make sense. In terms of players that I didn't select because they were just out of form this season, your Virgil van Dijk hasn't been at his best. Alisson, Salah's been nowhere near where Salah was last year. If Salah was playing anything like last season, you'd be selecting Mo Salah. Isak struggled since moving to Liverpool, and the injuries hasn't helped. And another one is Wirtz. I think Wirtz is actually a decent season for Liverpool. It's not a 115 million season, but it's not an awful season from Wirtz, but he's still nowhere near Dominic Szoboszlai. So then we're on to Manchester City, and of course I'm selecting Erling Haaland. I think people are forgetting how good Haaland was at the start of the season. I think this happens a lot. Haaland was a crucial reason why City were managing to somewhat stay with Arsenal at the start of the season. Without his goals, City would have pretty much been out of the title race since November, since December, but he's kept them in it. And I think his overall play has improved so much under Pep Guardiola, his link-up play. He's been getting goals as well as assists. And I think people are just downplaying this because they just think he's just a goal machine and that's all he offers to the side. Even when he doesn't score, he still plays well in a lot of games. I think the two fullbacks of O'Reilly and Núñez have also been really good this season. And O'Reilly's actually been filling in midfield recently, and he's been doing a really good job. I would say he's the closest to Erling Haaland. In terms of another midfielder that just hasn't been great this season is Rodri. If Rodri was playing at the level he was before the ACL, then you could definitely select Rodri, but he just hasn't been the same player since that injury. And Mark Gahey and Semenyo weren't considered because most of their minutes have been played for other Premier League sides, not Manchester City. So then we're on to the next club, which is Manchester United. And of course, I'm selecting Bruno Fernandes. I think this is rather obvious. Fernandes has definitely improved and been better since he's moved into the 10, which I thought was so obvious. He's clearly a way better 10 than he is an 8, and he's thrived under Michael Carrick. Someone that I may have considered if he didn't get injured was Matthias de Ligt. I think de Ligt was excellent before he got the injury under Ruben Amorim. I thought he was the best player actually before he got injured. I thought he was that good at the start of the season. I had in my team of the season so far. So he would have actually probably gone in over Bruno Fernandes, which will sound crazy, but I think he's the most underrated player in the Premier League. So then we're on to Newcastle, and I've decided to select Bruno G. I think this is obvious. He's been their standout player this season. The only player I think that's got close to him at points is Malik Chow. He's been outstanding in defence. And Lewis Hall. Lewis Hall's been really good at left back since coming in for Newcastle, but I don't think he's really played enough minutes compared to someone like Bruno G, who is injured right now, but he's just been so good throughout that you can select him. In terms of a player that's just underperformed so far this season, so I can't put him in, is Sandro Tonali. Tonali's right up there with Bruno, but he hasn't been fit. So then we're on to the next side, which is Nottingham Forest, and I've decided to select Elliot Anderson. He's been their star player in a side that's struggled so far this season. He has to be selected as their best player, and he's likely to get a move in the summer. In terms of another player that could get a move in the summer, Murillo's been good for Forest once again this season, but I don't think he compares to Elliot Anderson. I think a player that people may talk about is potentially Morgan Gibbs-White. I actually think Gibbs-White's underperformed so far this season, and I would say he's had a pretty average or below par season. He needs to be better for Forest, otherwise they could go down. So then we're on to the next club, which is Sunderland, and I've decided to select Granit Xhaka. He's absolutely essential to the Sunderland side, the captain, the leader, and he's a great footballer as well. I think because of his leadership qualities, people almost forget how good of a player he's really been for Sunderland this season. And I'm also including that sort of leadership side in terms of ranking the best player, because Xhaka adds so much, and I think he improves so many players around him. In terms of two players that I think have been really underrated in that midfield this season, Lafay and Siddiqui, I was very close to selecting Enzo Lafay. I think Lafay's been great for Sunderland. I think there's a handful of players that you could pick out, and I think Siddiqui's been great in that midfield, very underrated. I also think you could argue one of those Sunderland defenders, Mukiele, or definitely the keeper in Robin Roofs. He's been great for Sunderland this season. So then we're on to Spurs, and I've decided to select Mickey van der Ven. I think this is rather obvious. It's between two players, Van der Ven and Romero. They're keeping Spurs' season alive in multiple ways in terms of defending the goal, but also scoring the goals for Spurs. And if Van der Ven and Romero weren't playing at the level they were, then Thomas Frank would have been sacked in November, December like he should have. I don't think there's really any other players you can talk about. The only player I could really think of is Kulusevski. If Kulusevski played this season and wasn't injured for the entire season, then maybe you could talk about him and you could compare him to a Romero or a Van der Ven. So then we've got West Ham, and I've selected Matheus Fernandes. I think this is obvious. I think he's been West Ham's best player by quite a distance. He's been consistent throughout since signing from Southampton, and he's been crucial for them this season. If they didn't have Matheus Fernandes, they would already be down. In terms of two players other people may talk about, they may talk about Cristante Somerville. He's an inconsistent player. He's a purple patch player. Leeds fans will tell you this. Somerville, even in the Championship, would have sort of 7 games where he was outstanding, and then the next 7 he would really struggle. And I think we've seen this recently. The last sort of 7-8 games he's been outstanding has Somerville, but then the previous 16 games he really struggled. and that's why I haven't decided to select him. Another player is Jarrod Bowen. I think Bowen's had a decent year for West Ham. I don't think he's had his best year, and I think Fernandes has been the better player by quite a distance. So finally, we've got Wolves, and for the final club, I have decided to break my rule a bit. I've decided to select Matheus Mane. I know he's only played consistently for a couple of months, but who else am I realistically going to select from that Wolves bunch of players? It's got to be Matheus Mane. He's clearly their best player by quite a distance, and I can see this by watching him for a couple of months. He's a player that a lot of clubs are going to be looking at in the summer when Wolves go down. Let me know your thoughts on this ranking. Whether you disagree, whether you agree, and if you enjoy this, subscribe to the channel as well as liking the video.